Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the 39th CALLERLAB Convention in Nashville, Tennessee. Today is April 3rd and this is the Tech Marketing session. I am Patty Greene from Monroe, North Carolina, and I will be your moderator. And on the panel today we have Brian Jarvis from Silver Spring, Maryland, and Kris Jensen from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So please give them a round of applause. We're glad you're here, and we're just going to get started right away. We're going to have two presentations, and then we're going to try and leave enough time for any questions that we may be able to answer, or specific things that you want to ask.
All right. So when I was asked to do this a couple of years ago, it was like, well, tech marketing. What are we talking about? Using technology in square dancing. There are a lot of different approaches to that. I thought about it in terms of some goals, and one goal is communicating with your group to strengthen your existing group. So, for example, using technology to strengthen the relationship between you and your dancers. Things like having an email list, having a newsletter that your club sends out, something like that where you're in communication with your dancers because that strengthens the bonds of the square dance group. Using technology to build social bonds between the members of your club. So not just you communicating with your dancers, but having a way for dancers to communicate with each other. So instead of a newsletter, having a mailing list where everybody can write and talk back and forth via the internet. Using technology to help dancers learn. I added that one this year, but that would be, for example, just sending your dancers to the Taminations website. I don't know how many of you have seen that, but if they're wanting to learn, have some additional material to help them learn how to dance, review what the calls were. Yeah, those are really ugly. I want to apologize for my handouts. I copied them myself on my home machine, which is running out of toner. But I'll give it to the CALLERLAB office, and they can put it online. Sending your dancers off to Taminations where they can watch the moving dance figures go through the calls, that will help your club stay connected, help them learn, help them be more successful in lessons. Using technology to help callers communicate among themselves. How many of you are on SD Callers, which is the callers' email list that's run by Rich Reel? How many? Anybody? Yeah, about 5. So that's something that you might want to think about getting onto, because it's a continuing resource for learning about calls. There's a lot of discussion, and you also get to know other callers. So that's using technology to communicate within your already existing square dance groups. All right, another way to think about using technology is using it to market square dancing to build your group. All right, and the 3 aspects that I had for that were using technology to market yourself to dancers. Okay, this would be how to use the internet to make yourself available to market yourself to square dance groups. So, for example, having a website that's up to date, which mine is not, and that sells yourself as a square dance caller to other dancers. Keeping a blog might be a way of doing that. That's a way of communicating with your dancers, but also if somebody is reading your blog and seeing that you have a lot to say about square dancing, they'll know your name, and then when it comes up as a hiring opportunity, you may get hired for that. Using technology to market square dancing to non-dancers. Okay, and that, again, would involve things like having a website, one that might focus on dancing and the benefits of square dancing. I know that some callers have some very effective websites out there to market themselves to non-dancers, and that's another thing to do, of building your one-night stand business and and that would be a different website than marketing yourself to current square dancers because you're emphasizing different parts of the activity. So some of the tools that you can use to do those we've talked about, and Brian is going to go into much more detail on that, but just as an overview, email lists like SD callers, Yahoo groups or Google groups, again that works as an email list, online forums, those have become, I think, less popular over the last few years just because you have to go there rather than it coming to you in the email. So I've found that people don't tend to check forums really regularly. But that's another technique. Different kinds of websites. We talked about blogs. You know about having a personal website. That would be a marketing yourself kind of website. A site for the Square Dance Club, and that can be effective in marketing square dancing to non-dancers if they don't know where to go to learn to dance. Having a Square Dance Club website come up when you Google square dancing in your local area can be an effective use of the web. A Square Dance marketing site or a marketing site for marketing yourself to non-square dancers for party dances. And the informational sites such as Taminations or other sites where they actually will help you learn to square dance. All right, other tools, and this is really Brian's bailiwick: Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Flickr, or other photo sharing sites, or YouTube. How many of you have put videos up on YouTube? Okay, I've seen videos put up. One guy, caller, just puts up an iPhone on his collar stand and just videos every tip and then puts them up on the web on YouTube. So you can find lots of square dancing. They're not all very good. How many of you have seen really good square dancing videos on YouTube? I've seen a few, and they tend to be produced by professional videographers. So a good tool would be to learn how to use video. How about using the internet for group collaboration when you're working with your groups of square dancers? There are a number of online tools for working together to produce a weekend or a document or something like that. I've used Google Documents a lot with some groups that I've been involved with for creating documents. Telecommunication. Last year we talked a little bit about calling to a group that was not local. You could actually, with the right tools, set up a two-way video connection and call from your house to somebody else's basement. And if there was a small group that couldn't afford to bring in a live caller, you could do that. That's using technology in a way to help square dancing survive, possibly. If you have a small group, don't want to dance to tapes, it would be possibly better than dancing to tapes, dancing to a live caller via video. Okay, external outreach tools. These are things like online calendars and online directories. How many of you are listed at cedar.net? Okay, quite a few. Vic Cedar runs an online database where you can list yourself as a caller. It's a database of callers. He also has a database of clubs. He also has a database of events. All of that is interconnected and records, but the events, the callers, and the clubs, and the records, they're all connected so that if you have recorded a record and it's in his database, your name will come up. It will be linked. You can click on that name. It will go to your entry in the caller database. If you are calling events, those events will show up in your record, And when you go to the event, if you search the event and you're calling that event, your name will show up and be linked, and you can then go back to your record. Any clubs that you call for, those will show up. So using the power of databases and programming to create a very nice publicity mechanism for all of us to use. And there's no charge for that. So if you're not listed in at cedar.net, you should be. Online calendars in your area. I don't know about where you live, but in Albuquerque, the city runs an online calendar, and there are several other online calendar resources where you can post events. So why wouldn't you post your lessons when they're starting? It may not be effective, but it certainly can't hurt for somebody looking for something to do to find that. Finally, things like Google AdWords or advertising on Facebook. And those are things that Brian will talk about. But again, these are all tools that you can use, and you can find out more details on those. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian and go for the social networking.
Is anybody here currently using Facebook for promoting? Some. Okay. 6, 7 bodies. Good. Twitter? Pinterest? Instagram? Foursquare? QR codes? I'm getting blank stares. YouTube? 2 or 3. Vimeo? 0. Okay. Fun. Okay. Well, first, a bit of advice. If you're going to set up something in social media, go to Facebook first. It's the 400-pound gorilla. It has a population of 400 million bodies logging in multiple times every month. If you want the single best place to get the bang for your buck, go there. Next up, I would say, would probably be Twitter. 150 million users. They just hit their 5th anniversary this past month. Good audience there. How to take advantage of it? A little tougher. How many of you all have, say, a 12-year-old anywhere in your family tree you can take advantage of? Good. Because, see, the social media changes very rapidly. So your 14-year-old is already obsolete. Since we gave this talk last year, 4 major social media sites have vanished from the face of the earth. Facebook has almost doubled in size, and Pinterest has come out of nowhere. Does anybody even know what Pinterest is? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Guys, plug your ears. You don't want to hear this. Women in the room. How many here have an account on Pinterest, or have at least heard of it, or know somebody on it? Okay, a couple. There we go. Okay, guys, you can listen again. Pinterest currently, it's an interesting site. It's very photograph-oriented, which is a bit of a problem. We, as square dancers, don't do good stills. We do video. We're motion-oriented. We dance. We don't just stand in squares a whole lot, or at least we really shouldn't. If there's a good caller there, we shouldn't be standing in squares a whole lot. It's difficult to get good photos. We often don't have enough time to take good photos. It's difficult to get good lighting to take good photos. Many of the places that we dance, church basements and community halls and so on. But so much of social media is visual. So yes, Twitter is great that you can put in a 140-character blurb saying, hey, I'm off to square dancing tonight. Hope to see you there. If you could attach a photo to it, which is a new feature this year, great. That would be fabulous. But Pinterest is photo-oriented. It's largely about the photographs. And it has a particular demographic. We were talking about earlier. Some 60%, I believe, of the population are middle to upper income women of the Midwest. That's just where it started. Yeah, well, I'm on there too, and I don't qualify on so many levels. There's a large population there, and it is exploding rapidly. I've created a a board of my own to post photographs and announcements, forms, etc. for our upcoming weekend festivals and so on. So there's a place to find them. And people are finding them, and they are repinning them. People I never knew existed are suddenly pinning and looking at my boards and repinning. That's fabulous. That's free marketing. I tweet a great deal. Has anybody here on Twitter tweeted about this weekend or told anybody that you came here this weekend? Okay. I often wonder if the rest of the planet got a blurb on the 6 o'clock news that Nashville fell off the face of the earth. Would they know? Would your dancers know back home that they're suddenly missing a caller? Most of my clubs do. I'm actually surprised talking to people in the hallway that they seem to come here in stealth. And it's like, why? Why? Tell people you're going to a Square Dance Caller Convention. It's good marketing for you as callers. You're upgrading your skills. It's a good thing. Anytime that you use the word Square Dance in the media in any fashion, that's spreading the word. That's necessary because we are the invisible recreational sport. Nobody knows what we do or where we do it because we do it in basements and halls away typically from the commercial zones. We're not out active on the streets that often. So yes, tell people. When you go to a dance and you've got a Facebook page, say, hey, I'm going off to a Square Dance. Or if you're concerned that somebody's going to break into your house while you're gone, tell them, hey, I just came back from a great Square Dance weekend or something to that effect. Tell people, because the people that are friends on your Facebook pages are not all Square Dancers. And they'd like to know. Or at least they'll be curious. Or they'll like or share information, and they will share it to other people that you don't know and can't otherwise reach. The power of social media is the sharing button. Encourage people to use it. And Facebook divides into two parts. You can have your personal page. And this is where you keep the pictures of your grandkids and your cats and other cute and nifty things. And then you can have a separate fan page for you in your professional persona as a Square Dance caller. The fun part is when you've got a fan page of you and your professional persona, you can delegate management of that to somebody else. You can have multiple administrators for that page. So you don't have to be there every day posting a status or slapping up a new photograph or something like that. You can share it with other members of your club, whom you trust, hopefully, or your partner, who might be taking photographs, and let them do the updates from time to time. Now, some people I know, Twitter, 140-character text statements that are sent out to their followers, usually via mobile phones. It's not always convenient to say, I have a dance coming up tomorrow night at such and such a hall at 7 p.m. Hope to see you there. It's a pain in the butt sometimes. But you can use services like, it used to be called Twitter. Now it's called Gremlin. They changed I gave this paper to the head office less than 25 days ago, and 4 bits of it are already out of date. Things move quickly. A service called Gremlin will post announcements to your Twitter account at your specified times when your audience wants to know or when they'll be reading. And you can schedule repeat announcements. So if I've got a dance coming up next week, I can have daily announcements, say 1 o'clock in the afternoon, or I can make it 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And include all of that, including a link back to my website or to a map site that tells them where to find the hall. On the personal website stuff, for example, I have a personal website. I have my Square Dance Caller website. I have a mobile-optimized website. It was just an extra button from the website service that I selected. If you go to the mobile version of my website, all it is a list of my upcoming gigs, time, date, what programs I'm calling, the name of the hall, and a link to Google Maps to show you where you are. Because odds are, if you're looking at my website on your mobile phone, it's probably because you're trying to find out where the place is. Easy stuff. Over on the side, has anybody recognized these? Few people. They're QR codes. Toyota developed these, I want to say 15 years ago, as inventory management devices. You just put a little code on the inventory so that the robots running through the little warehouse can identify an item, pull it off the shelf, and take it to another QR-coded location within the factory. But you can use them for multiple things. They encode text. We typically use them in social media to encode a web link. So if you just get out your little phone that has an appropriate app for the camera, you just snap a picture of this, and it will decode it. The 3 on the right are 40 characters. That's enough for a web address. The one on the left is a longer link. I think that one can encode up to 128 characters. I could be mistaken on that. There's a higher density format that can encode up to 1,024 characters. And I think even a high density is 4,096. It's practically an essay. Who would need that? But you might. It's there. They're free to generate. Why would you want to? We put, in D.C., several of the clubs, we put those on the bottom of our weekend festival registration forms so that you can, if you've got the form in hand, great. But if you run out of copies or you need to or somebody wants to register online so they can use PayPal or credit cards to register for an event, they can snap that and they get the web address, the form, up on their mobile device instantly. Yeah. Oh.
So just to be clear, Error Counter Law, California, just to be clear, that all that is a web address underneath that, and that's typically what it's used for? I mean, you probably use it for anything, but typically it's used just for a web address, so you snap it and get it on your phone?
Typically, yes, just as a web address. That's the easiest, fastest way. Now, I invite you to scan these things later on. I'll tell you right now, just as a little gag, 3 of them will take you to a place of happiness and joy. The 4th one will make you pray for death. I won't tell you which one that one is. Enjoy.
So how do you produce, if say I wanted to put those on the business cards for my Square Dance Club, how do you produce these? Do you have to buy them? Or?
How do we generate a QR code? Nothing to it. I went to Google. I queried QR code generator. It sent me to a website that lets me make them. I gave it the text I wanted to encode, which happened to be a web address I cut and pasted from my website. And then, poof, it spit out a graphic on the screen, which I then did a right-click to save as a graphic on my PC. I could then import it into any word processing document or include it on a website. Although, if you're including it on a website, well, I mean, you're already on a web browser, so what's the point? It's good for printed material, posters, handbills, things you're putting up in the supermarket. Mind you, you're going to have to, it kind of requires a tech-savvy kind of audience. But are we not trying to get more younger people into square dancing? My great-grandmother will not know what to do with these things. My nieces and nephews will know what to do with these things. So it is kind of selecting a demographic, yes. And it can be done for free. I do not advise putting it in, say, video. I saw this in a television commercial once, and I thought, what a colossal waste of time. It takes me at least 15 seconds to pull up my phone, unlock the screen, pull up the app, point at 15 minutes of screen time on a television. Get real. That's not going to happen. I wouldn't put it on billboards either because, unless you're stuck in traffic for an extended period, which I hope not, it's not going to work. But posters, wonderful. A banner carried in a parade, just tucked down in the corner. Nothing to it. Innocuous. We were looking at some possible logo designs. Something like that could be incorporated right into the center square of any one of those things. It's hidden away inside. A code within a code.
Printed advertising.
Beautiful. Brochures, business cards. Whenever we go to outdoor festivals or parades and such, and we're handing out just black and white business cards indicating that we've got open houses coming up and what to do. On the back side, we've got that, which can send them to our full website with more information. More than we could ever possibly fit into just a business card. And again, it's free. I love that word. Free is my favorite word, next to chocolate. Anyway. Any questions thus far? Have I totally lost you all? A couple people are looking confused, and a few are glazed over, and I think one in the back has fallen asleep, but that's okay. It's been a long week. Yeah.
Is there a minimum size that these QR codes have to be? I'm saying about fitting it on a business card.
I just saw one on a business card that I swear was no more than 1/4 of an inch by 1/4 of an inch. It was tiny, and I didn't think I could possibly resolve it with my phone. It did. I could actually read it. Mind you, it would have to be one of the low-resolution forms down at the end as opposed to high resolution. I was amazed how small it could get and still be legible. These things, when I printed them, by the way, they were about 1 inch square. I just blew them up here so that we could have something that you could actually see that didn't look like a decimal period from the back of the hall. So yeah, if you just got a 1 inch square on a poster, it doesn't have to take much space.
I will add one more thing to do it. And it's another way of getting to a URL to a website, right? Doing it puts the advertisement completely in a different class than anything else. It moves us into a different demographic, as you said before.
Yes.
It points us to a completely different audience who may not have looked at us otherwise.
Right. I should emphasize social media is just another tool. It is not a replacement for things that you already may be doing. Knowing how to use Facebook will not help you if you do not have content to put on Facebook. Having a listing on cedar.net will not help you if you don't update it. So please update your website, update your profile. If you have not updated your website since, 2010, and they're still showing last season's dances, it's of no use to anyone. Worse, it makes you look bad. Keep it current. Keep it up to date. How many people here, just on a slightly different topic, how many people here have an elevator speech prepared? Elevator speech. Okay. Pretend that you're trapped in an elevator with a very important person, and you have 30 seconds to pitch your case. Have your polished statement ready. What you do, who you are, what you can do for them, because that's what they're interested in. Why they should talk to you. If you can't do it in 30 seconds, you potentially have lost a customer. And that customer could have led you to others, because how do we get most of our dancers these days? They are friends of other dancers. So you should have your elevator speech prepared, and it should be on your website, potentially other locations, maybe your business cards on the back. Exactly what you do, what you can do for people. And make sure that your best advocates, your dancers, have a script as well if they're going to be out in public representing your clubs or your business or your dance events, so that they know exactly what you can promise to do for them and what they can't. I know I'm sliding slightly out of tech marketing to just general marketing, but please do not neglect the basics.
Jay Silva, New Hampshire. Just to let you know, if you are on Vic's website, as far as your information goes, Debbie Cedar will not update it for you. You need to go on there and do it yourself. If you forget your password or any username that you're using on there, you need to get in contact with her, and she will give it to you by email, I believe.
I'd like to hear more about Facebook. I've always avoided it because early on I heard rumors that you sign up for Facebook, it goes in, grabs your Outlook address book, and mass mails to everybody without you knowing it, asking them to join and so forth. And I get some of these. One of the younger people in our square dance club said, why didn't the club have a Facebook page? And I never thought of I guess I was being dumb because businesses have Facebook pages, so a club can have a Facebook page. What are the risks? What is the proceed? Can you tell us anything more about it?
Back over here, I think we have good comments from the floor here, I think.
It's me again. 2 years ago, my wife and I created a brand new club called the Silver Swingers, and it's been going very well. And to answer your question, is one of our dancers, she decided to put the club on Facebook. Well, things went pretty nicely as months went by. Up to this point, we have close to 1,000 people on it now because she started that. The problem is that there were so many friends on there, she got kicked off. Yeah, I don't understand it either. My wife does, but she's back on again. Yeah, because when you start getting a lot of friends getting on there, am I saying this right?
The rules of Facebook
because there are rules,
change. Yeah. Let's see. Yes, we're in the second quarter now of 2012, so I'm sure they've got a whole new user policy in place. They changed them very rapidly. A couple of years ago, Yeah, things were pretty ugly on Facebook.
Yeah.
There were concerns, certainly in security issues, and it was vague about whether or not you could have a business presence as opposed to a personal presence. And depending on the sort of personal presence you had, there were restrictions about how things would work. And they still don't allow anybody under the age of 12 on Facebook.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
My 10-year-old
Yes. And then there were product pages, and then we got into – I wrote up a huge chunk of this about how to set up fan pages and such after last year's session, because just before then they had phased out group pages
Right.
and gone to fan pages. So the documentation I had that I prepared at that time had to be chucked. So after last year's session, I produced one on fan pages. And then they chucked a large portion of that, and now we've got timelines, so it looks different again. The whole thing, it keeps evolving very quickly. Right now, you can set up a fan page. You can set yourself up as a professional. I chose entertainer because they have a series of categories.
Yep.
I know some people have chosen health and fitness. And if that's your particular marketing ploy, fabulous. Whatever suits your particular product line.
But if
I went in as entertainer. I do not have a vast number of followers there. Most of mine are in my local clubs. I don't even remember the precise number. But every now and again, I'm putting up photos. Last night I put up a summary of what I did Monday at this convention, and I threw up a couple of photos that I took at this convention of myself in various other places. A little self-promotion. I then went to my personal website and shared my caller page across. So my 850-odd friends of my personal website now can see that I've posted to my professional fan site. And they can see that as well. So I'm sharing to a broader audience. And if I had something coming up like a weekend festival, I was trying to drum up a lot more business, I would ask my friends to like or share a particular statement. And they frequently will. And it goes then from my 800 friends to each one of them having 800 friends or more. Some of them have vastly more, and some of them overlap. The power is in the sharing. As for them snarfing up your your address box, there was in the ancient days of Facebook, it would ask you, hey, would you like to invite your other friends to join? And it was in that invite box. You said, well, there's no harm in inviting others, except that's how they snare you. Then they will ask you, nowadays they're asking for permission. There's a couple websites that were very unethical about not asking you directly for your approval to do this. Now, they've got hammered pretty severely by a number of agencies about bad performance in that fashion. So now they're going to ask you specifically, may we use the contacts in your list to invite these other folks? I usually say no because my address book is 3,000 entries, and I just don't want to have a reputation for spamming my own friends. And many of them are already Square Dance related anyway. It wouldn't help.
So if you know somebody that does Facebook within where you're at, get them to set up the Facebook, and you can start getting friends and just move right along, and it'll grow.
Georgine from Washington State. Okay, so I'm from the old school. My husband has a Facebook page based on who he is. I personally have not been on there. I don't communicate with my grandkids there. I haven't seen pictures of her house and her daughter and updated because I didn't go there. But we need to come into the 21st century. I just now text on my phone, okay?
Congratulations.
So, yes, I'm there. I'm getting there. But like Mike and I were talking earlier, how can we as leaders use this to incorporate both CALLERLAB, Roundalab, and getting our friends of friends to advertise that we are starting a class, whether it be squares or rounds, and to invite them to come out and participate in a beginning square or round dance class. And so as a newbie to this, how can I get my club to get a Facebook page in order to promote the classes that we're trying to get people to participate in without emailing the whole world that I'm not going to be home on Monday night?
I have two comments to that. The first is there's probably somebody in your club who would be absolutely delighted to take that on if you were cautious about yourself getting kind of pulled into it. The second, we started a new club in our area, and we had a open house, and I have a lot of local friends who do not square dance, and they will probably, I shouldn't say never, but they'll probably never square dance. Old square dancers, people who just want to support me. And I posted up on my personal Facebook, I didn't have a fan page then. I posted up on my personal Facebook page a week before, a couple weeks before, a couple days before, hey, come join us at Walkersville Presbyterian Church at 7 o'clock. No experience necessary. And I actually had people from the church, people from the community, a couple surprising people where I truly, when they walked through the door, I just about stopped calling dead in my tracks because I was, so it's a active, passive way of communicating. Because my friends who support me in my square dance world, even though they may not be able to dance, I have one friend, I say hello, and she likes it and shares it to her bazillion people. So it's kind of like a network marketing, spider web thing that gets out. And all you have to do is throw that first pebble into the water.
I was wondering, does your church, your civic association, or something like that perhaps have a mailing list, an email list?
Probably haven't.
It's great to take advantage of pre-existing communications networks. Use them lightly because you don't want to turn it into the all square dance channel, piggybacking on somebody else. You're asking to borrow their audience for a brief period of time, so be gentle in its usage.
The husband that has the Facebook account. No, yeah. Yes, I get all those. I guess my question, a couple of comments. Number one, do you realize that CALLERLAB has a Facebook page?
Yep, I'm on there.
Yeah, but how many realize that? And I think it's probably safe to say that CALLERLAB is not using that Facebook page to any of its capacity. Because I know when I first talked about it, and I happened to be from Roundalab, and we had the same issue, and when I called Dana, he said, yeah, well, we got it in there so we could capture the name before anybody else got in there, which is why they got it in the first place. But I was listening to you as you were talking about that. You mentioned that you have put out a paper on how to set up a Facebook account.
I had, and now it's obsolete.
Is any of it of any value to anybody, even though it's a little obsolete because Facebook has changed their policy?
Yeah, they changed some things. I just need to find a little block of time to make some updates and some new screen captures to make it more friendly for the non-technical crowd to use.
Okay, once you do that, where is that available?
It'll probably be on my website. Anybody who can get to the how to contact. Yeah, the handout has my handout, extra copies at the back. Right there at the top, it's got my email address, my Twitter account, and my About Me account. So you can send me an email, follow me on Twitter, whichever, and let me know, and I can send you a copy as soon as I've got this thing hammered out.
Okay.
I'll also send a copy to head office here at CALLERLAB, so they've got it available as well.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking on the people that don't have a Facebook account, something to get them started. Do you use the event page very much?
Yes, I have for specific square dance events, usually for just weekend festivals. It's a bit cumbersome to try to create and then invite a vast amount of people for just, say, a club night on a Tuesday. But if I've got a weekend festival coming up, my club runs 2 per year. I call for another one. There's a handful. Yes, I use event pages. Do you want
to explain to the other people what we're talking about?
Okay. Event pages. It's another aspect of Facebook where you can specify that a particular event is coming up. You can give it a description. Again, you can share administration. Just because you created it doesn't mean that you are the exclusive owner in perpetuity. You can share and delegate that responsibility to other, say, officers of your club or trusted members, your partner, whatever. You can then set up with a specific date, time, location. All that information is clearly made available. And then you can invite other Facebook users to that event. And they can RSVP, yes, no, maybe, or add their comments. And they can reshare and invite other people they think may be interested that are not in your personal list.
Now, that's a term that I've heard people use over and over in talking about Facebook that I guess I'm confused. You can invite other Facebook users. What does that mean? You mean who am I inviting?
Okay. Yeah. When I create an event page or something to that effect, I create it, and then it'll give me the option to invite my friends. So I have my friend list of 800 and some odd people, and I can send a broadcast message to all of them, or I can just check off the ones. I know if I had a square dance weekend coming up, I know that my grandmother from Canada will not be attending. Bless her heart, she'd love to, but she's not. So I can check off the full list of people that are the ones I want to specifically invite or not, whichever. And they will get a note saying, by the way, Brian Jarvis has posted an event. Here's the event information and a link, and you're invited. Yes, no, maybe. And they can add their own comments to it as well. And then they can also reshare to others.
Okay, so you basically have control over who is invited, except that they can reshare. But you have control. It's not Facebook deciding who to invite.
Right. It's you selecting your audience.
Think of it as if you were sitting and you were going to send it out an email to your club. It's the same type of thing. You would pick whoever you have in your address book, send it out. If they chose, they could forward it on. It's kind of the same thing, except it's not email. It's more instance.
Well, they do send email.
Yes, it does do that. Out of curiosity, has anybody here using Guidebook? Guidebook. Yeah. What's Guidebook? Okay. Guidebook is an application, an app, usually for mobile devices, or it's also available on tablets. Here it is. That's your Kindle. She has it on her Android-based Kindle. Kris has it on her iPhone. I have it on my Droid phone.
I have it on my Droid also.
Oh, there we go. Cool. What is it? Okay, it's an app designed for mobile phones. It is wow, how do you even describe it? It's the app which will run modules. A module is a particular event that you have created. In this case, I created one for this CALLERLAB convention. I typed in from the information I got from head office a list of our dates, the times for each session, the description of the session, which room it is in. I put in under maps a graphic showing the first floor layout of this hotel so you could find the convention rooms. I could throw in extra graphics to identify, say, a knife and fork to indicate the lunch sessions, or a table with talking heads around it for the committee things. And it's all here. And once I go through the schedule, and at the bottom there's a bar that says, add to my schedule, I can craft my personal schedule out of the whole list. Now, it's basically the event schedule that was the paper version that was in your registration packets. But I've now got an electronic version. And I can update this thing. I can share it with others. It costs nothing to do. The application is available for download free of charge. As long as there is a module created, I created this one, this free module can be shared, I think, 200 times. There are tiers you can purchase for a large sum of money, and next tier that gets you unlimited downloads. And then for a whopping huge sum of money, you get a whole bunch of extra features and unlimited downloads. That's way out of my budget. Wade, when I told him about this application, he said, somebody else is doing the work and it's for free. I like both those aspects, so he let me go ahead with it. I've used it for our Advanced and Challenge weekend in Washington, D.C. back in February as a prototype, just to see how it worked. And it worked pretty well. And then last weekend, the Independent Squares in Philadelphia used it for their weekend festival. And they had made some tweaks and tunes to it, and it worked even better for them. So they had, for every every block of dancing, they listed the 3 rooms, the callers that were there, a picture of the caller, and the program that they were going to be calling. It was wonderful. I didn't have to carry around a paper and clipboard with me from hall to hall throughout the time. I just carried my little mobile phone. Free of charge.
What happens after the 200 downloads?
I believe it just says that there's no more downloads available. I don't know exactly how many downloads we've had at this moment, but I believe Sunday night we had 79 downloads. 55% were iPhone, 45% were Android. As the creator of the app, I can delegate. Sorry, not the creator of the app, creator of the module. As the creator of the module, I could also delegate that kind of administration to see what's there.
Dennis Grossnickel from Kansas. How do you get your audience to know it's there?
I bet he tweeted it.
Well, I certainly tweeted it, and I put it on Facebook. Yeah. And head office sent out an email to the world. I believe it was last Thursday. It was last week. It was. Yes. And unfortunately, the first time out, there was a problem with iTunes that was preventing the Apple users from getting at it. Oops. But yeah, they sent out an announcement about it at the time.
Michael Kruppar from Silver Spring. One other thing to keep in mind with all this tech stuff you're talking about too is all of these technologies talk to each other really well. You can post on Pinterest and it shows up on your Facebook page, and you can post something from Foursquare and ends up on your Facebook page, and vice versa, your tweets and everything. So all of these communications that we're talking about do a wonderful job of communicating with each other. And if you have a bunch of people following you, doesn't matter what you use to post, they're going to see it wherever they see it. So they communicate with each other very well.
It's a great way of grabbing eyeballs. And again, the cost in this case is time and some effort to figure out how these things work. I'm still wrapping my head around Pinterest, for example. Not being a middle to upper income, crafty woman from the Midwest, I'm having difficulty getting my head around the exact attraction of it. But clearly there's a following, and I've got to figure out how to tap into that.
Georgine from Washington State. So how can, after having sat with you guys in that marketing meeting, how can CALLERLAB use these things to help Mike on the marketing committee that he's working on to improve it, enhance it, to make it better, to get what he's trying to do, get something accomplished?
Okay. As near as I can tell right at the moment, we have a problem of a lot of people with really great plans and not enough minions to implement them. Some folks have to learn some delegation. It's really sweet that head office has a CALLERLAB fan page. Sorry, Wade. But, it can delegate management of that. It doesn't have to stay exclusively in their hands as long as it gets shared to other folks that are trusted. That's the key part. It has to be trusted, responsible adults.
So I want to answer that. Eric Hennerlaw, San Francisco. I sit on the marketing committee with Mike Hogan, and this is all great. These are great tools. These are incredible tools. This by itself isn't necessarily a marketing plan, but it's a tool to be used. A lot of different tools to be used. So part of it is these are tools used to get something done, and we're going to figure out the marketing plan and use these tools. So they're complementary. This doesn't tell you how to get a beginner in a class per se, but it gives you all the tools for you to get a beginner in a class. Okay, I want to ask you a separate question. Going back to Facebook for a moment there, you have at least 2 Facebook pages, one for yourself and one for
Brian Jarvis, Square Dance Caller.
Okay,
Yes.
Do you have just 2?
Caller and entertainer.
Yes.
Do you have just 2, or do you have more than 2?
I have the 2.
Okay, so my question is, and it's a general question as to why. I have one Facebook page, and I choose only one, not 2. What do you get out of 2? Why pick 2? Kind of like that.
My life is split into 4 different chunks that don't necessarily overlap. I have the family stuff because I live in the U.S., but all of my family is back in Canada. I have my professional work as a Unix and network engineer, which overlaps zero practically with my Square Dance stuff. I have a chunk of friends that I keep in touch with through Facebook that I knew from elementary school and high school and still keep track. And then there's my Square Dance world. And I like to keep a chunk of this separate. My work, I do not, for example, friend any of my office colleagues on my Facebook page. I will not do that because I will occasionally vent on Facebook where I do not want necessarily my boss to be reading it. I will share on certain, I'm more selective about what I post on Twitter. Facebook, my Square Dance caller page is just about my Square Dance stuff, and it's shared to other people that are interested in Square Dance stuff. So I'm not spamming all of my uninterested or already blasé friends about it. Also, with the fan page, I can delegate. I have the option of delegating. I could administer it. I could have somebody else administer it. So, but my personal page is mine alone. There's no delegation facility built into Facebook for your personal web page.
Okay, that kind of answer. I guess, and that's a good answer. The reason I asked the question is I go into Facebook with the philosophy that anything I put on there is public record and anybody can see anything, regardless of who my audience might be. That the moment I post a word, everybody's going to see it. So I never put anything on Facebook that I don't want the whole world to see. So that's why I said. So you separate because of just how you're. I was thinking you don't. Okay, obviously the Square Dance is a Square Dance, but the other part, the personal thing, isn't where you're saying all these inflammatory things you want to keep private because I never consider it to be private because somehow it's always going to be found out.
Well, there's always the risk, and yeah, I wouldn't say anything blatantly horrible about other people anywhere in electronics because it'll come back to bite you. Sure as the sun rises in the morning, what you post electronically will probably leak out someday. There's a difference between insulting your boss in real time, this minute, versus him finding out that you were disgusted with a particular way that he let a meeting fall apart 2 years ago. A different kind of issues. So yeah, I'm not going to post anything particularly inflammatory, or sometimes I will have posted, mark it private, and go back and delete it. And nobody will have ever seen it. But I'm just sort of thinking, sometimes I'll have it sitting there thinking, I want to dump this out somewhere, but I use LiveJournal for that, actually, because there's much tighter viewing controls. And again, there's some things I write just because it's my electronic online diary, and there are some things that I never make public. I'll write it just to get it out of my system, and then it stays permanently locked in private.
The other thing about it, I just did a fan page, and the other thing about it is that fan page can be public. You're not a fan? I guess it should be. Oh. But that page can be public, meaning I have it out there. It's kind of like a yellow page thing for me, and anybody can happen upon it. And the reason I did it is I wanted someplace specific where it was specifically for my Square Dance calling activity, and it wasn't, like you said, family and friends and my cat and, Steve posting up bacon stuff and the whole 9 yards. Because I want to present myself as a professional. Now, I don't care if people know about all that other stuff, but that's just a spot where it can be public. Anybody can see it. Somebody could search for it. They could find out about me without me letting them be a friend and clutter up my box. I did want to make one comment about something bring it back a little old school. One of our local clubs, the club that I belong to, Paul's the club caller for, recently, with our new president, found a calling tree in Oklahoma is where it originates from. And for a reasonable cost, for a year, they have set up, and I think it's brilliant, just because I wouldn't want to make all the phone calls. They call into the service, they give a message, hey, we're dancing Friday night, special dance, A through G, bring snacks, wear purple. And they hit a button and they can tell when it to send, and it phone trees every phone number, every club member who was asked to be notified. And it's a one-stop phone notification for people who don't have email, they're on the road, they may not be Facebook, so just a kind of an old school thing. I'm not exactly sure who the company is. Do you know who the company is, Paul? But I can certainly find that out. But I thought it was a really smart way for a club to encompass old school, new school. How can we get the word out?
And a variation of that is Google Voice. I'm a big fan of a lot of Google products. You can get a dedicated telephone number that anybody can dial. You leave your outgoing voicemail message with your announcement. Say, because I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and the weather in winter can be variable. We get blizzards sometimes in winter. We get hurricanes sometimes in summer. It's not always clear if we're going to be dancing on a particular night. If there is a closure due to weather, I can make a posting there, just a voicemail message saying, no dancing tonight, and anybody can dial in and find out if they have any question at all. Free of charge. Yeah. Yes, a Google Voice is totally free. And you have the option of having the calls forwarded to any other number. So if I actually do want to receive calls, I did this a couple of years ago for a convention. I was the corporate secretary for DC Diamond Circulate, a square dance convention in Washington, D.C. About 1,000 dancers, more or less. And I got a Google Voice number that was printed on all of the materials, and it forwarded to my mobile phone. Nobody got my mobile phone number. They got the Google Voice number, and I could leave a message there, or it could forward to me. If my phone did not answer, it would go to the next telephone in sequence, which was John, our corporate president. And if he did not answer, it went to another telephone. And if that one did not answer, it ultimately would go to voicemail. And then Google would do a best effort transcription of the voice message and text me that, as well as a link of where I can actually hear a recording of the voice.
I've used that also. It forwards to my home phone and my cell phone. So whether I'm at home or out and about, I can get phone calls.
That sounds fascinating. Because I run the web page for my club. I volunteered to do that a number of years ago. One of the concerns I've always had is when we have a flyer made up for a dance, I always ask permission of the person that's got their phone number on the flyer. Do you mind this being posted on the web for the whole universe to see? Does Google have any restrictions on using this for this sort of semi-commercial? I don't know if it's considered commercial or not, but for this kind of purpose?
I don't recall any particular restriction. It was available for personal use and not for profits. I'm sure they would frown on for-profit corporations abusing it, but our clubs usually aren't millions of people. Wish. So it's not been a problem. I've never heard of anybody having issues with Google about it.
The only thing I've heard is that Google has announced that it is free for 2012. So there's a possibility that they may charge in the future.
They reserve the right.
They reserve the right, yes. But, it would be great for a club or for a website. You want to put up a phone number because you can easily change it. So, for example, one week you could have it going to one club officer, and another week you could share, have it go to someplace else, so nobody would have the burden the whole time. Okay. Google Voice.
Yeah. Google. What's the other product? Where is it? Google Call, I think it is, or you can use your computer as an outgoing telephone.
Well, that's part of Google Voice, I think.
Yeah,
it shows up on your Google Mail, but you can use it as an outgoing phone, and then when whoever is getting the phone call sees your Google Voice number rather than your phone number. You can also use it for texting. For those of us who have really ancient phones and texting is a pain, you can use Google Voice to text on your computer.
Homework assignments. Okay. Prepare an elevator speech. This stepping away from tech marketing, just in general marketing. Get your elevator speech together. What do you do at your core? What do you do? Why would people want to come dance? They want to have fun, primarily. They want to be entertained. Tell them that. Hi. Well, in a nutshell, my elevator speech goes to the effect of, hi, I'm Brian Jarvis, and I heard cats. That usually catches their attention. And then I say, I teach and plan recreational dance events for fun and social people who like to have a great time meeting new folks. If you want to make new friends, we should talk. I didn't call it square dancing. Personally, I think it's a damaged term. There's so much baggage loaded into it, people instantly go to fiddles and bales of hay. and I want to get away, so I call it recreational dancing. We were discussing today's square dance. I really liked that phrase yesterday at the marketing meeting. By the way, y'all should come to the marketing meeting next year. And I did not get very specific about the ages of people. I can leave that constructively vague because I call to different audiences, different venues. I didn't say much about the music because, again, I will change that to tune it to the needs of the event. But I'm emphasizing fun and socializing and meeting people, getting engaged, getting out of the house, because I think that's the core of the program that I bring to the table. And I gave them an actionable event at the end of it. We need to talk. So work on your elevator speech. It'll come in handy. If nothing else, it's a great little blurb. It should be the first thing on your website, what you do, because that's going to force them to want to read the rest of your stuff. And besides, your existing dancers, they already know about your website. They already know about your dance events. They might be curious about details like, oh, God, was that 7 o'clock or 7:30? And they're willing to dig through your website to find that. Folks that are just not even into the square dancing thing at all, they don't even know it exists, they need to be drawn in more carefully. So you have to be careful what's on that first splash screen, the first thing they see. It better look good. Which brings me to the next point. Take some pictures. Get some photos of yourselves. Look good. Smile. For the love of God, look like you're having fun when you're calling or dancing. Smiling is not a crime. It's a really good thing. I've seen some really hilarious photos on some caller websites. I love Bill Eiler's pictures. And Andy Shore has some great pictures, too, on his website. And then I'm seeing some others that, my God, this person is not having a good time in front of this camera. And, wow, what a turnoff that was. So get some good pictures of yourself. Next time you're calling, just snare somebody up to the side and have them snap a few shots as discreetly as they can. Or better yet, stage the photos during the break. You can be up at the front of the room, mic in hand, smiling down at the audience that isn't there as your accomplice gets some shots from the front. They look like action shots. And who cares that it's staged? Nobody cares. Just get something. Look like you're having fun. And if you can get some well-lit, colorful shots and some from above of your squares having fun, even better. People don't want to come to square dance to dance alone. They want to dance with friends and people. So show them people having fun. That's our product.
So you mentioned Instagram. Do you use Instagram to share your photos?
I haven't because it was not available for Android phones until just this week.
There you go. Here's another tip.
But now, yes, now I'm going to get started on that too.
How about we're coming up against our end of our time. So I'd like to we're going to break a little early, and if you have any specific questions you'd like to ask anybody, we'll just give a little bit of time for that. So could I have a round of applause for our panelists here? Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for coming. We'll see you in a square.